A Russian bomber dropped a bomb on its own infantry positions. Notably, the munition did not detonate upon impact, but was later destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone, resulting in the destruction of Russian positions and the complete elimination of personnel. According to the brigade, the Ukrainian military quickly recorded the location of the unexploded ordnance and sent a strike drone to it. This was followed by a powerful explosion that covered the Russian forces on the spot. The incident once again highlights chronic problems in the Russian system of coordination between aviation and ground units. According to the Ukrainian military, such incidents are happening more and more often. Guided aerial bombs often lose their guidance and deviate from their intended targets, especially in the conditions of active counteraction by Ukrainian air defense and electronic warfare. Russia dropped glide bombs on its own territory nearly 50 times in 1 year. Experts believe the accidental bombings are caused by defective munitions. Several incidents of Russian munitions landing in the Belgorod region have previously been reported, most notably one in April 2023 that resulted in a massive crater in downtown Belgorod. Despite their simplicity and low cost, glide bombs have become one of Russia's most effective weapons during the full-scale war. Experts warn that these bombs could pose an even greater threat to Ukraine, which currently has little defense against them, as Russia is expected to continue its mass deployment of glide bombs to support further offensive operations. Russian jets fire the precision-guided bombs out of the range of Kiev's air defenses, and they glide towards their target, often with devastating effect. Recall, there have been numerous reports of incidents of Russian aircraft accidentally dropping bombs and missiles on Russian civilian areas around border regions with Ukraine. Such errors have destructive and lethal consequences for the Russian population. Such mistakes were likely due to a combination of poor procedures when arming the aircraft prior to sorties and poor execution by aircrew during missions. Experts also noted that increasing reports of such incidents likely pointed to fatigued troops and poor training.
Two U.S. senators, one Democrat and one Republican, have introduced a bill proposing more than $50 billion in aid to Ukraine over the next 2 years. The Hill reported on this. The move comes as Russian President Vladimir Putin rejects calls from U.S. President Donald Trump to end the war of aggression. The bill was introduced by Senators Jeanne Shaheen and Lisa Murkowski. Their proposal includes $30 billion in direct military assistance through 2027, as well as $3 billion in foreign military financing over the next 2 fiscal years. Additionally, the bill expands the U.S. President's authority to reduce arms from $100 million to $6 billion annually for supplying weapons to Ukraine from Pentagon stockpiles. It is noted that a significant portion of the potential funds was also allocated to developing defense production within the United States. The bill aims to provide President Trump with additional tools to pressure Putin into negotiations by strengthening Ukraine's military capabilities to counter Russian attacks. The legislation includes $600 million to support Ukrainian law enforcement and anti-corruption programs, as well as $50 million for prosecuting war crimes. Among other provisions, the bill includes using profits from frozen Russian assets and the transfer of seized illegal weapons. Additionally, it proposes allocating $1 billion for a trilateral UAV initiative between the U.S., Ukraine, and Taiwan. This initiative involves joint research, development, and production of drones, as well as studying lessons from the Russian-Ukrainian war. This bipartisan bill is a win for America. It supports our defense industrial base, American manufacturers, and workers, all while U.S. military personnel learn from Ukrainian innovations on the battlefield, Shaheen said. The bill comes after the U.S. Senate Committee on Appropriations introduced a defense funding bill on Thursday that includes $800 million in military aid for Ukraine. The United States Senate has approved defense spending for 2026, which includes funding for military assistance to Ukraine. The draft budget provides for the allocation of $800 million for the Ukraine Security Initiative, $225 million for the Baltic Security Initiative, and $119 million for other projects related to European security. At the same time, it is worth noting that the relevant bill adopted by the House of Representatives did not contain provisions on financing Ukraine. However, an attempt to introduce an amendment that would completely prohibit the allocation of funds to support Ukraine was not supported. It has not yet been specified which programs for Ukraine the planned funding will be distributed to. It should be noted that the change in the U.S. government's position on Ukraine is also reflected in new approaches to priorities in the field of defense supplies. Another important step regarding Ukraine was taken by the U.S. Department of Defense. The department signed a huge $3.5 billion contract with Raytheon to produce medium-range AMRAAM air-to-air missiles. Under the contract, the missiles will be delivered to several countries, including Japan, Canada, Germany, the United Kingdom and Ukraine. The contract is reported to demonstrate the continued global demand for the combat-proven AMRAAM missile, a primary air superiority weapon for more than 30 years. According to press reports, the AMRAAM system is currently integrated with 14 platforms and is used in 44 countries around the world, demonstrating high effectiveness in air-to-air and surface-to-air operations. Its proven capabilities in active conflict zones increase its strategic importance to U.S. and allied defense forces. President Donald Trump harshly criticized Russia after its latest missile and drone attack on Kiev, calling it disgusting and disgraceful. Russia, I think it's disgusting what they're doing, Trump said as he took questions after an executive order signing at the White House. I think what Russia's doing is very sad. A lot of Russians are dying. According to Associated Press, Russian missile and drone attacks overnight on Ukraine's capital city killed at least 13 people, including a 6-year-old boy, and wounded 132 others, authorities said Thursday. A 5-month-old girl was among 14 children wounded, Ukraine's emergency service said. It was the highest number of children injured in a single attack on Kyiv since the start of Russia's invasion 3 years ago, according to public records consulted by the Associated Press. Trump said the U.S. plans to impose sanctions on Russia, but added, "I don't know that sanctions bother him," referring to Russian President Vladimir Putin. "I don't know if that has any effect, but we're gonna do it," Trump added. Trump also addressed the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, calling it a terrible situation. "You know, the United States gave $60 million for food. And it's a shame because nobody, I don't see the results of it," Trump told reporters. Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Israel on Thursday to discuss the worsening humanitarian situation in Gaza, as the death toll of Palestinians waiting for food and other aid continued to climb. Witkoff and U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee will inspect food distribution in Gaza on Friday, the White House said. At least 91 Palestinians were killed and more than 600 wounded while attempting to get aid in the past 24 hours, the Gaza Health Ministry said Thursday. The victims included 54 people killed while awaiting food in northern Gaza near the Zekim crossing on Wednesday, the ministry said. The toll is expected to rise further as many of those killed or wounded were brought to isolated, undersupplied hospitals in northern Gaza and have not yet been counted.
Very serious question here.